But I can play dirtier than they can.
What President Trump says about Canada is wrong. Our trade surplus does not represent exploitation by Canada of the United States of America. Quite the opposite, in fact. It is the result of us selling very good and very well-priced, in fact, below-market-priced raw materials, which America then upgrades and turns into massive profits for its economy. He's also wrong to ignore the sacrifices Canada has made for the United States. Canadians fought and died along Americans in Afghanistan. And let's be clear, we did that exclusively in response to an attack on our American neighbors. And let's be clear about another thing. The president's talk of 51st statehood, whether it is a joke or not, is unacceptable. It goes without saying there is zero chance of Canada ever being a part of the United States.
For national and international security and to keep our very energetic and dangerous potential enemies at bay, is this land on which we're going to build the greatest golden dome ever built. We're building a golden dome that's going to, just by its very nature, going to be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not.
America is not Canada. And Canada never, ever will be part of America in any way, shape, or form. We didn't ask for this fight. We didn't ask for this fight.
That is like the worst strategy I've ever heard. They suck. Look, we are a $30 trillion economy, right? We are the consumer of the world, okay? Carney has a problem with us. He gets on a plane and he goes to China. Does he think the Chinese economy is going to buy his stuff? China is entirely an export-driven economy, right? So what did he do? He came back and said, oh, we'll take their electric cars. I mean, is this nuts?
Work with us on economic issues, work with us on the friendships and the relationships that we have on a personal basis around the world, and work with us on security issues so that we can deliver for the people that own our countries, and we can rebuild the trust that they demand. And we will be amazed at what we can accomplish in a very short period of time.
Trump's ambassador seems hot and bothered with Canadians keeping their elbows up. He says what Canadians do is none of his business, but that it's mean and nasty.
Canadians staying home, that's their business. I don't like it, but if that's what they want to do, it's fine. If you want to ban American alcohol, that's fine. There are reasons why the president and some of his team refer to Canada as being mean and nasty to deal with, okay, because of some of those steps.
That was Pete Hoekstra speaking at a conference in Washington State. The Premier of British Columbia responded to his statement, David Eby saying, clearly Canadians' efforts are having an impact. He's encouraging Canadians to keep it up, keep buying Canadian, keep vacationing in Canada. He says the country will stand strong together to protect its jobs, economy, and sovereignty.
I really want to know from Americans, what has changed from your perspective as to why you hate Canada so much? I jumped onto a live this morning with a bunch of MAGAs, and the animosity was real. And they really have short memories as to our relationships, the relation between Canada and the U.S. So is this a conversation that we should be having? I think so.
I think it's pretty ridiculous and a slap in the face to our allies. Like, you guys have our back, you stimulate our economy.
It might cost us more in the long run, down here. And he has a lot of different things he's doing and may come back to bite him. All of us, you never know.
We got to do what we got to do. I mean, we've been taken advantage of for too long, and I believe in Trump.
I don't know. He's saying it's to reduce drugs and things across the border, but I don't buy that, really. So,
U.S. President Donald Trump has issued a new warning to Canada, threatening to block the opening of a new bridge linking Windsor and Detroit. So this is the Gordie Howe Bridge. It is set to open this year. The U.S. President Donald Trump now says the U.S. should own at least half of it and be compensated in a lengthy, there it is, social media post. The U.S. president says he will not allow the bridge to open until, quote, the United States is fully compensated for everything we have given them. And also, Canada treats the United States with the fairness and respect that we deserve. We will start negotiations immediately, end quote. President Trump, by the way, is claiming Canada built the bridge with no input from the U.S., something Windsor's mayor disagrees with.
Some perspective for Americans who are going after Canada again. Look, Canada was disrespected by an ally, and they simply responded. It's well within their right to push back, all right? And just because they don't want to sell U.S. products anymore, doesn't mean you can get cranky about it.
When President Trump came in, he disrespected our allies. He literally threatened to invade one of them, and he called the other one. He said, oh, they're just the 51st state, right? That's Canada. And then he put tariffs on our allies in a completely irrational way. It made no economic sense, made no national security sense. With that comes pushback. This is a self-owned goal. We created this problem.
If you read what I'll call, for the want of a better word, of MAGA intellectuals, it's quite clear that they think Canada is a problem for the United States. Partly because we're this woke, liberal, progressive dystopia that's everything they're trying to prevent, but also because they think we're sort of under China's thumb, we're a client state of China, et cetera. They've been working themselves up to this kind of language. And I've been reading pieces where they say, well, we don't actually need to annex them. All we need to do is just play upon their internal divisions. All we need to do is accelerate these separatist tendencies, and Canada will be ours, if you will. They'll be weakened and we'll have to do what we tell them to do.
Family. For years, many Americans viewed Canada as America's quieter neighbor, a country that rarely dominated headlines or challenged Washington's influence. But that perception has started to change, family. With Mark Carney stepping into Canada's leadership and emphasizing economic resilience, national sovereignty, and a more assertive international role, Canada has become a much bigger topic in American political conversations that many people expected. And so that shift has sparked heated reactions online and among some supporters of Donald Trump and the broader MAGA movement. Canada's recent posture has become a point of criticism. Now, some commentators argue that Canada's leadership is moving in a direction they oppose ideologically, while others see Canada's willingness to push back in trade or even diplomatic disputes as an emerging challenge. And it's important to note that these reactions are not universal among MAGA supporters, but they have become increasingly visible across conservative media and social media platforms. And so one reason that this conversation has intensified is the contrast in political messaging. And so Donald Trump has long emphasized America first, prioritizing U.S. interests in trade, manufacturing, and even foreign policy. And Mark Carney, meanwhile, has presented Canada as a country that can protect its own interests while strengthening international partnerships. And so those different approaches naturally invite comparisons, and supporters on both sides often frame them as competing visions for the future of North America. And so trade has become one of the most discussed flashpoints. Canada and the United States are among each other's largest trading partners. And any disagreement over tariffs, over energy, over manufacturing, or even supply chains can quickly become political. And so when Canada responds firmly to U.S. pressure or negotiates from a position of confidence, some American commentators interpret that as Canada becoming more independent or even less willing to simply follow Washington's lead. And another factor is Canada's recent efforts to diversify its economic relationships. Rather than relying overwhelmingly on the U.S. market, Canadian leaders have increasingly discussed expanding trade with Europe, the Indo-Pacific, while investing in domestic industries. And so supporters view this as prudent economic planning, while critics argued that it could weaken the long-standing economic partnerships between the two countries. Regardless of where one stands, these debates have fueled online narratives that Canada is becoming a more formidable player. And so Mark Carney's background also has shaped perceptions. And unlike many career politicians, he built an international reputation in finance, serving as governor of two major central banks before entering elected office. And supporters argue that this experience gives him credibility in navigating economic uncertainty, in navigating and in also attracting investment and responding to global financial challenges. And critics, however, question whether technocratic approach fully reflects the concerns of ordinary voters, and these contrasting views have only amplified interest in his leadership. And social media has further intensified the discussion, and we can see that we can see events in dramatic terms, sometimes suggesting that one side is winning while the other is panicking, and in reality public opinion is more nuanced family. And so many Americans remain focused on domestic issues, and many Canadians continue to value a strong relationship with the United States despite policy disagreements. And so the largest, or not the largest, but the loudest voices online do not always represent the broader public. And at the same time, there is a growing recognition that Canada is playing a more visible role internationally. And whether through economic policy, whether through diplomacy, or discussions about energy and security, Canada's attention in receiving closer attention in previous years, we can see some observers that simply see this evolution as important as the U.S. ally. And so the relationship between Canada and the United States has always involved cooperation alongside occasional disagreements. And political leaders come and go, policies change and priorities shift, but the two countries remain deeply connected through trade, through geography, through security, and through cultural ties. And so even during periods of heightened rhetoric, both governments have strong incentives to work together on shared challenges. And ultimately, the headline that MAGA panics as they see Canada as a threat captures a sentiment expressed by some political commentators, but it should not be interpreted as describing every MAGA supporter or the movement as a whole. And so the most accurate story is that Canada's increasingly assertive role under Mark Carney has become a prominent topic in American political debate. And whether that reflects genuine concern, strategic political messaging, or even routine partisan disagreement depends largely on which voices one follows. And as Canada continues to define its place on the global stage and American politics remains intensely polarized, expect these comparisons to continue. And the bigger question isn't whether Canada is becoming more influential, it's how both countries will manage their evolving partnership in a rapidly changing world, and whether political rhetoric will ultimately give way to practical cooperation. And so that conversation is likely to shape North American politics for years to come.